So today we're going to replace a ball joint on this awesome old Subaru Forester. Because the other day I went to take it on a camping trip and the suspension was shuddering so bad that I had to turn around and take a different car because I was afraid we weren't going to make it. So for your entertainment, I'm going to try and take this thing out and recreate that experience of the shuddering of this car and see if we can actually see it on video. Alright, so I've got a vibration in the front of the car. It's like a shudder, but it's only at high speeds. At low speeds like this, I don't feel it. So we're going to take it out and run it up to about 60 miles an hour. And I should be able to feel it then. I don't know if you'll be able to see it on video though. Alright, so it's 40. 50. It feels fairly smooth actually right in the moment. The other day it was jumpy, shuddering, and the faster I went, the worse it got. But it was also on a different road, and it was interesting because I didn't really feel it in the steering wheel. The steering wheel was nice and straight and solid the way it is now, but I felt like something in the suspension was loose, almost like a wheel. I was like, at some point I was like, man, is the wheel loose? And it had that sort of that feeling of something just jumping around when it shouldn't be jumping around. So it turns out I can't recreate it this time, and I'm going to turn around and head back to the house because I already know it's a ball joint. Man, I already ordered the ball joint. And the way I determined that it was a ball joint was that I jacked the car up, but I looked underneath it for anything that was loose. I tried to shake all the wheels from side to side and up and down, and the sway bar links, the sway bar attachment points, the tie rod ends, rack and pinion steering connection to the car that holds that on the car. Make sure all that stuff is nice and tight and nothing is loose. And I did find one thing, and you'll never guess. It was a ball joint. So that's what we're going to do today. And so the first thing we're going to do today is, again, we're going to jack up the car. But first, before we jack it up all the way, I'm going to loosen the lug nuts on the wheel that is on the same side where the ball joint that we're going to replace is. And so by sticking a crowbar between the lower control arm and the wheel hub, I can sort of pry those things apart and see if this is loose or not. And if it is loose, I'll actually see movement. If it's not loose, this thing will be solid and we'll see no movement at all. And so in this one you can see it is loose, and therefore the ball joint is loose and we need to replace that ball joint. On the other side of the car, for reference, this thing is nice and tight and this ball joint is in good condition. So now I'm going to remove the wheel all the way so that we can get to work. So the ball joint that's on there currently that we're going to take off, this has a castle nut on the bottom of it with a cotter pin through that castle nut to secure everything in place. So first step, remove that cotter pin and then loosen up this castle nut.
It's a 19 millimeter on this particular one.
So one technique here I tried at first but failed at. I don't think I had enough space to get a good enough swing of the hammer. We just loosen the nut on the end of the ball joint here just so that it covers all the threads, but gives you some space to allow movement in the ball joint. Then you give it a good whack, and sometimes this thing will just pop the ball joint right out.
Break it loose from the control arm here. Alright, and then if that doesn't work, another technique is to use a puller, like this guy here that we've got, and get the puller up in here. I got this part up here around the control arm. This has contact with the nut on the bottom. We'll get the puller up around the control arm first and tighten this guy up onto the bottom of that nut. This whole thing's on there nice and tight now. Now we just have to get a wrench on this guy. There we go. Pop that out. Loosen this. Take it off the control arm. Now I can remove this nut on the bottom. Alright, I am also going to disconnect the sway bar.
So in order to get more movement out of the lower control arm there and allow me to fully disengage the ball joint, I also disconnected the linkage for the front sway bar.
Hopefully this control arm will loosen up, drop down a little bit more. Get this jack here, put that under the sway bar. There we go, just like that. So it's totally free. So there's our ball joint, the end of it, the threaded part on the end. Now up here, we are looking at, there's a nut. There's a nut on top right here. We're gonna loosen that nut and sort of a pinch section in here in the middle, and then we're gonna pry in there, and that should loosen that enough that we can pull the ball joint out the bottom. This guy's a 14 millimeter. I remove this bolt fully from the pinch bolt thing here. All right, now I want to get up in here right here with I've got a chisel that I'm going to use to wedge in there. Wedging this in here. Then with this little pinch bolt area wedged open slightly, we should be able to pull the ball joint out just by hand, just like that. All right, so here is our new ball joint. It comes with this little blue protective cover. Take that off, discard it. I've got this guy with a new nut on here. This nut is not a castle nut. It's a little nylock, and it also comes with a new little pinch bolt guy here. So we'll use that. I'm going to apply some anti-seize around this guy here and then install it. All right, so let's see if we can get this guy in here. All right, I'm just pushing that in until it stops, basically. Get a better view of how that is sitting on there. See, I pull it back out a little bit. That's just going in. Just like that. All right, so now that guy's in there, I'm gonna go ahead and remove this guy and install our new pinch bolt here. This guy comes with some thread locker on the end here, that blue stuff. Thread that back in here. Alright, so then on this pinch bolt, our torque specs are 37 foot-pounds. Alright, it's 37 foot-pounds right there. So that is halfway done. Now I'm going to go ahead and take this nut off the bottom. And I am again going to use some anti-seize on this bolt that goes in the control arm. Anywhere that metal touches metal, I like to put anti-seize on there. Alright, I'm going to try and get this, wiggle it into the control arm. Try to jack that up into position. That. Just enough that we get the threads out the bottom of the control arm for that ball joint, and we get this nut threaded on there. And then we just need to torque that down. All right, so our bolt on the bottom here, this is 30 foot-pounds. All right, there's 30. So that's our ball joint put back together. Brand new ball joint on an old junky car. That is the way it should look. Everything's torqued down appropriately. Again, 30 foot-pounds here, 37 foot-pounds up there. All right, now we just have to reinstall our sway bar. All right, so this bolt here, both of these bolts, are supposed to be 33 foot-pounds. All right, there we go. Everything is back the way it was. I'm just gonna put the weevil back on. All right, then the wheel lug nuts get torqued to 66 foot-pounds. All right.